Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Mortensen, and I'm an Economic Development Planner here at Region 12 Council of Governments in Carroll. With me this morning is Rick Hunsaker, Executive Director, and Chris Whitaker, Local Assistance Director. Please note we'll mute each of the attendees to limit background noise. This session will be recorded later for later use and viewing. This morning's webinar will focus on knowing where your customers are. This webinar and those before it and those to come are made possible through Special CARES Act funding provided to Region 12 from the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration. Thank you to our partners from the County Economic Development organizations in our region: Audubon County Economic Development, Carroll Area Development Corporation, Chamber and Development Council of Crawford County, Greene County Development Corporation, Midwest Partnership, and SAC Economic and Tourism Development for their work in promoting this event and assisting in developing this series of topics. Our next webinar, I have a Facebook business page, Now What?, will be next Wednesday, March 31st at 7:30 a.m. I'm very pleased to introduce our presenters this morning. Darcy Swan is a business counselor with the North Central Iowa SBDC and owner of In Tandem Marketing, where she focuses on working with rural small business owners. She has over 30 years of marketing experience and has developed expertise in branding, social media, website development, and public relations, among other things. Also joining us this morning is Michael Mittler from the Iowa Western SBDC. As an entrepreneurial executive, Michael has over 25 years experience leading, developing, and managing growth. Welcome, Darcy and Michael. The floor is now yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having us back. For those that were following us through the series, you know, Michael and I kind of tag team it and share each week with, or today, like we're presenting together, or we kind of tackle a topic on our own. So today we're going to talk a lot about customers, and this is something that I think every business owner needs to take some time and really think about to be successful and to be able to move their business forward. So hopefully by the time that we're done today, you'll have a better understanding of maybe how to identify your customer, why it's important to really dig deep and know who your customer is, more so than just are they male or female, and then also what kind of social media platforms resonate with certain kind of audiences. And we're actually going to break down some social media platforms and give you some statistics and demographics for those. So I'm going to try and share my screen. You would think after all of the years here I did it. Yay. All right. Because I'll tell you, yesterday I was on Zoom from 1 until 9 o'clock with like just a couple potty breaks. That was it. So it was a long Zoom day. And after a while, you just kind of like, anyways, but more than you guys wanted to know. All right. So today we're going to be talking about knowing where your customers are. And all right. So first off, we need to take a look at what do your customers look like? And I have a saying that I use, and if you've ever been on one of my marketing workshops before, you've probably heard it, but not everyone that fogs a mirror is your customer. And that's really important to know, because most business owners will say, well, everybody's my customer. And that's not true. You have low-hanging fruit. They're the ones you need to be going after. Other customers who walk in are wonderful, but they're not the ones that you really should be spending your time or money on, to be quite honest. So I want to give you an example. So I have, a few years ago, I worked with a sports bar and grill that was doing some major rebranding. And when I sat down with the owners, I asked them to explain to me who their customer was. And the one owner looked at me and he said, it's anybody who eats or drinks. And I looked at him and I said, you are wrong. That is not right. And I said, my mother-in-law, who at that time was in her late 80s, is not somebody that you should be spending any marketing dollars on, because she's not your primary target audience. And so we started to peel back the onion, so to speak. And after we kind of got to the core essence of things, we realized that his key customer really was those younger families with kids in school. They did a lot with sponsoring sporting events and like show choir and things like that. They were very active in supporting youth. And so when we started looking at it, that made sense. And he started recognizing that with the people that were coming in the door. And so we did make some tweaks to make them a little bit more family friendly, because he hadn't really ever thought about it before. He just figured you want to come in and watch a game and order a burger, you're his customer. And that's not necessarily always true. And what we also found is when he figured out that it was families with kids, he started, like I said, doing some things internally to make it more family friendly. And the kids all wanted to go there to eat after a game, or to go there after a school concert or parent teacher conferences. And where did the parents go? They went to the sports bar and grill, because that's where the kids wanted to go, and they know that they would behave and that they would eat the food. So it's really important. And hopefully today, as we go through this, we'll start to help you be able to identify your customer a little better. Now, customers can be what we call B2B or B2C. So B2B would be business to business. So years ago, I worked at Electrolux, and I'm going to share a couple of examples with you today because a lot of them are very relevant. But we had a OEM line that we did central vacuum cleaners, and that was B2B. So we would sell those to other businesses. So we marketed very differently when we went to another business versus the end user or the consumer. So you can have, it doesn't always end up being the final consumer that your customer. It could be another business that's a distributor, or you're selling parts, that go into something that would ultimately end up with a consumer. And you can also have several different type of customer segments. So what I mean by that is that you may have several different demographics within your customer base, and to understand and know who they are is really, really important, because it will help you craft your messaging, know where to communicate with them, really understand their needs, so maybe you can develop additional solutions to their problems. So let's take a look at the cell phone industry. So for me, that's a really great example. So the overall goal of the cell phone industry or the phone industry is to provide devices that help people stay connected, right? So it's not like their vision is very skewed. That ultimately is what it is. But the term connection or stay connected is very different with my 20-year-old daughter versus my mother and my mother-in-law, who are in their 80s and their 90s. So understanding that they have different needs and different expectations is really important. So my daughter, her version of staying connected is, I need a phone that's going to be fast, that'll allow me to download a lot of apps, that I can do TikTok and I can text and I can Snapchat and do all of these things to help me stay connected with my family and my friends. My mother-in-law, my mom, they're more, I need to stay connected from a safety standpoint. Now, my mother-in-law is 93, bless her heart, and she's got very arthritic hands. So for her to use a phone is really tough. She still has a flip phone, and it's got the big buttons so she can, be able to dial if she needs it. But she takes her phone with her when she's outside or when she's gone, because she likes that extra layer of protection. And we like it because if we need to get a hold of her, we know we always can. If she doesn't answer her landline, we'll call the cell phone. Now, my mom, she's got a smartphone, but again, she's got arthritic hands. It's hard for her to use her phone. So she basically uses it for a cell phone or just a phone. And then we also sent her a lot of texts, like photos. And I just became a first-time grandma, and so I am flooding my mom's text app right now with lots of photos of the new grandbaby or great grandbaby for her. So she loves getting photos of the kids and the grandkids and the great grandkids. So that's her way of really staying connected. So two very different definitions, two very different need groups, but they're all within, the same, they're all customers, but they're different segments. And we're going to dive into a little bit deeper here in a few minutes about how you can kind of go through segment them out. So the last thing when we're talking about what do they look like that I wanted to mention was that you really need to get past the surface, past that initial layer of are they male, are they female, what age are they? Those are all things that are important, but really getting to the core essence of what are their hobbies, do they drive pickup trucks? Do they drive, sports cars? Are they sports enthusiasts? All of those kinds of things will help you narrow in on your messaging and also on the channels that you message them with. So I'm gonna pass it off here to Michael.
So I think one of the things that you need to focus on when you're working with your customers is basically finding out what their problems are and solving them. And, a lot of times when you think, oh, well, I don't really have a problem when I'm going to McDonald's, but you do, you're hungry. So it's remembering what the people are looking to get and how they're getting that problem solved. You want to know if those people are, if they're going to get or achieve or relieve or dodge or acquire something that's going to make their life a little bit easier, whatever that challenge is, whether it's going through the drive-through at a local fast food restaurant. What are those challenges that you're trying to solve for those people? Owners who can understand the problems the best are most likely the ones that get the business. So those people who can figure those problems out and solve them quickly will be the ones that get those businesses. Messaging should tell them what the product will do for them or what that service will do for them. You want to make sure that you're being on task. I think one of the things that people forget is we're very, at least with my clients, when they first get into business, it's very much about what they want to do. And so I always give some good examples of why that's not the case. We have a store and the store, when we opened, we didn't want to work Friday and Saturday nights. Well, that's not what our customers wanted us to do. So I think sometimes, we're forgetting the fact that why we're in business is to help solve these particular problems and help create services and those kind of things for customers. And so sometimes you have to take a step back and ask, what am I doing right for my customer, and what does my customer need, and when do they want those things, and kind of create that particular type of environment or that product or service around their particular problem. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So when the ultimate goal of any relationship really is a great experience. You think about it regardless of what it is, but it really truly is the end goal here and what we're trying to go after. And so by truly understanding who your customer is, you can provide them a great customer experience. But first off, you need to understand how they want to connect and receive your product or service. So as you're digging deeper, finding out, do they prefer face-to-face interaction or would they rather buy online? And what we found through this whole past year with the pandemic is that a lot of people had no choice but to buy online, and they wanted to go pick up, or they wanted it delivered to them. I'll order it online. DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of those kinds of businesses have skyrocketed because people don't want to go out, but they want to go out, if you know what I mean. So, and I know at our office, Kimberly and I order luncheon quite often. And so we'll order it through a DoorDash, and it makes our lives easier. We don't have to leave our office. We can still get a lunch. They deliver it to the front door. It makes it so easy and convenient. Well, we're a great, target audience for them. So understanding that, also understanding, do your customers want trial offers? Do they want a free 15-day offer before they purchase, or maybe they want a subscription? When I worked at Electrolux, I was responsible for the aftermarket customer service care. And we came up with a subscription service because what we found was that people who had vacuum cleaners, after a few months, kind of forget that they need to clean or empty their bags. And then their vacuums would start not performing like they remembered, and they would bring them in, and well, all it was the bag was full. So we developed a subscription service so that they could sign up And then they could check the frequency that they wanted to receive the product, the vacuum cleaner bags. And so they were on a subscription and they never had to worry about it again, and not have to worry about whether the store had the right bag for their vacuum or not. So really understanding, you know, how do you want to, or how does that customer want to be connected to? Cell phone example, my 20-year-old probably not going to put a print ad out, or maybe an ad on local radio, or maybe even an ad for local television for her age demographic. My mother and my mother-in-law, those are great fits because they read the newspaper cover to cover. They're watching local news on the local news channel. They're listening to local radio. My 20-year-old listens to Spotify, so she's not going to hear any of those ads that are really targeted to her. She watches TV, but she watches it on Hulu. So she's skipping through a lot of commercials, or she's watching something maybe on YouTube TV. And they have those nice Zen moments that come up where there's no commercials, you know, and she doesn't read a newspaper. She gets all of her information online. So really understanding your target audience, or who you're going after, understanding how they want to be communicated to, is really important. Also frequency, you know, some folks once a month want to be contacted, some once a week, you know, some never. So you really need to understand, because you don't want to over communicate with somebody who only wants to get maybe electronic newsletter once a month by sending something to them weekly, or maybe they only want something quarterly, or only something when there's big news to be had, or something like that. So again, understanding how they want to be served will help you better identify who your customer is and really get to know them.
The other thing you need to focus on is what they think is value, and value is in the eye of the beholder. So this is one of the things that I think a lot of people get stuck on. A lot of my clients, or the clients that I've dealt with before, will say, well, I'm going to undercut the price of so-and-so. And I always like, ooh, undercutting the price does not necessarily mean you're going to sustain being in business very long if you can't pay for that merchandise or pay for that price undercut. So I always tell them to look at the little things that they do that might be different, things that might be a little bit, you know, maybe you have a nicer box that things go in, or maybe you have a gift on their birthday, or little things like that. I think people value those and will pay extra for those, and sometimes we think they won't. I have a funny client that, like, every time we have a conversation about him going out and selling his product, and every single time he goes, well, do you think it's better if I cut my price? And I'm like, you're not making money cutting your price. You keep complaining that you need more money, and that yet you keep talking to me about cutting your price. Apparently we need to fix that. And so we came up with different ways that he could, you know, like, if you cut your price, I always tell clients this, if you cut your price, how can you ever offer a sale? Because it's already cut to the lowest level it can possibly be, or any promotion, or any free gift with purchase. If you're cutting your price so much, you're trying to give those little things like, oh, well, you know, you buy this for us, but you get a free gift on your birthday, or you get a 10% coupon on your birthday. So trying to understand what your customers value. It's not always money, you know, it's not always, oh, I want the cheapest thing. Sometimes it is, I want something a little bit better. And I don't know if anybody's ever been to Five Guys, but it's like going to Five Guys and getting a hamburger, and going to McDonald's and getting a hamburger, or Wendy's and McDonald's. Two totally different, you know, different scenarios. You're getting something that's a little different. So I think this is where you have to kind of do some customer discovery, talk to your customers, and ask them what they value. And so that I kind of, to go back to like the beginning of this presentation, this stuff is done over a period of time. We make people try to do this up front before they start a business, but 6 months into your business, you should be going back and checking in with your customers and finding if their values have changed, or maybe you're finding that, oh, wait a minute, I didn't expect to find this customer. I didn't expect this person to be a customer, and later I found out that this person is a customer. I have a great example of that. When we opened our store, we thought it was only going to be people who were who didn't care about health and wellness. So they were going to be older adults because they wanted to eat sweets. So we thought, okay, they're going to be older people who don't care about their health and wellness. They like their sweets and that's it. You know, kids aren't going to like this stuff. They don't care about that. And what we found out was the kids were more interested in it and brought their parents, and the kids knew exactly what to order because they had done their research. And we thought that, you know, most of our age demographic would be 50 plus. And we found out after we opened that it was not 50 plus, it was 18 to 34. So you need to keep checking in with clients, and you need to keep looking at that data and finding out, because your market's going to change. And COVID, of course, changed that because we had to, you know, you have to switch things up a little bit. But watching what your customers are doing and constantly checking in with them, surveying them, and just having conversation with them when they come into your business and talking to them is probably one of the best ways to figure that out.
And I just have two things to add to what Michael just shared. First off, you know, there are a lot of people out there who do not shop just for price. You know, they're willing to pay a little bit more. So don't undervalue your product or service by thinking I've got the least cost out in the marketplace. Be proud of where you're at in your price points, and make sure that the customer, when they're doing business with you, clearly see why you're at the price point that you are. And so it could be all these little added value things that Michael was talking about. Also, I think, you know, definitely the smaller businesses have a huge opportunity to create a greater customer experience because you can be so close to your customers. I do a lot of boutique shopping. I love to support small business. And I love it when I order something and I get a package that's got a little thank you note put into it. I recently ordered a couple of tops from a friend of mine's boutique out in Utah, and it had a sprig of lavender. It was just tissue paper with a sticker and a swig of lavender with a little thank you card. And I loved being able to open that package. It was just like, wow, they took the time. I know, Michael, you do a fantastic job with your business with adding the little note cards, you know, and they're beautiful little cards, and you open this box and it's right there on top, and it just makes you feel very appreciated as a customer. And am I going to go back? Heck yeah, because I feel valued. And so I think those are some things, you know, I'm willing to pay a little bit more when I feel like my the business that I'm utilizing their service or purchasing the products from values me. And those are the little things that you can do to help move you up so that you don't feel like you have to be at the bottom price point. All right. Okay, so Michael and I were talking about this the other day, and I when I worked for Electrolux, I was responsible for the aftermarket sales. So it was direct to consumer aftermarket sales. So once we have a customer, how do you keep them? And I was telling Michael that my first couple of weeks at corporate, I was hearing all of these people's names and board meetings and stuff, and I didn't have a clue who we were talking about. Well, Electrolux at that time used buyer personas, and I love them. They make it easy. People remember stories, right? You remember meeting someone and some of the things that they shared with you. And that's exactly what a buyer persona is, but it's fictional and it's generalized kind of summary of who your ideal customer is to help you better really get into their mindset. So it helps you kind of really get to know them and figure out, how do they want to be communicated to? What kind of messaging would resonate with them? What are their hobbies? And all of those fun things. It's kind of a weird deal though, because it's like I would sit in a board meeting and we'd be talking about Sandy. And Sandy was the Eureka buyer persona. And Eureka vacuums, what we found, was that it usually went, price was very important to that consumer. But having a super clean home was also very important. We found that the majority of the people buying vacuums were female. And so we kind of built this persona around Sandy. You know, they might have a couple of pets and pet hair would be a problem. We got to figure out how to help with that. But I'm sure you can imagine what my face looked like when we're sitting in these meetings and they're throwing out, you know, Sandy and Tom. And I'm like, who are these people? They were the personas. And we had pictures of them up on the wall so that when we were talking about our vacuum cleaner, we were talking about these people, and it would help us better figure out how to market to them and new products that would resonate with them. So the personas are really there to help you figure out how to personalize or target your marketing. So for instance, like if you're going to be doing an e-newsletter, you know, you may send out different versions based on who you're talking to. So go back to the cell phone industry, right? So if I'm sending out an e-newsletter, I would have a very kind of different message for my older demographic than I would my younger one, if I chose to do email communication with younger ones. So it just kind of helps you be able to pull that together. So here's kind of what I'm talking about. And this is just one example, and you can do this tons of different ways. But typically what we would do is we would identify kind of who a low-hanging fruit customer would be. And we would name them and find a picture that represented them. And then we would start to go through and talk about different things like, okay, so how old are they? Are they married? Are they single? You know, kind of where do they live? Are they rural or urban? You know, what do they do as an occupation? In this case, Stacy, the student, is a full-time student. We talk about budget, you know, what is their household income level? Here it says she prefers to use her credit and debit cards. So those are all kind of things we want to really start to identify about our customers, because, you know, if we're only taking cash and we're finding out that our customers really want credit and debit card usage, then we've got a problem. So you need to figure out, again, it's about having a great customer experience. So the different marketing platforms that we can find her on is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. You know, so that tells me right there, if I'm doing social media to reach out to this group, then I need to be on those platforms. And she talks about, you know, they compiled her needs and who she goes to for her information, her pain points. So she's very budget conscious, obviously, because she's a college student, doesn't have a lot of money. So putting these together, and it, like Michael said, it doesn't happen overnight. You start to identify people coming into your store, and maybe you start asking questions at the register, or you start asking questions online before they check out. You know, just simple things like, well, how did you hear about our store? That might be a good place to start. I ask everybody who comes to the RSVDC Center, how did you hear about us? Because I want to know who's driving traffic to our center, whether they found us online doing a search, whether it was an economic developer, whether it was a chamber, a bank. So I ask those questions. We also, you know, you may want to say, you know, get their zip code, or, you know, then that can help you figure out kind of their geographic location. And I always think it's funny. I was actually in Carroll last Friday, and I went to a store that I frequent quite often when I'm there, and I've got a little a reward card, and she asked me for my phone number. Well, it's automatically set up for 712. Well, I'm a 515, so area code. So when I start to read it, she goes, oh, geez, and she had to go back and change it. So now they know that they've got somebody outside of the 712 area code that's coming in to do business with them. So these personas take time to develop, but really allow you to put a complete story together. And it's easier for people to remember stories than it is, you know, sometimes just hardcore statistics. So as you're talking, you know, about maybe wanting to launch a new product, or who, you know, you get a new product in and you're like, well, which one of our customers would this better fit? You can look at those customer segments based off of those personas and say, ah, it would be Stacy, the student, that would be the one that would be the most interested in this. Let's go after her first. And that will help you be able to, you know, utilize your marketing dollars a little bit more wisely. Michael, do you have anything? Yep,
No.
thank you. I was just going to ask if you had anything. I knew you do. So
I think people too, when they see this, they're like, oh, this is something that you can't do as a new startup. It's really hard to do this. But I think what you can do is look at other people that are doing what you're doing, whether you're selling coffee or you're selling hamburgers or you're selling, you're doing a boutique. You can look at other boutiques and you can kind of look and you can kind of get what their customers are like as a starting point. But it's not going to be your ending point, because once you get into business, after about a year of being in business, you'll start figuring some of these things out. And I think when we talk about the social media platforms, they give you lots of tools to figure this stuff out. Trust me, if you look at Facebook Insights, you're going to get lots of insights on who your customers are. So I think it's really important to keep abreast of those kind of things. And then, and so when people first start out, I'm always like, this is stuff that you're going to worry about later on. You just got to start thinking about it now so that you know what you're looking for. So keep that in mind.
And a little plug for Michael for next week, because he's going to be talking about Facebook for Business.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're probably going to talk a little bit about the analytic insights. So, all right. So what we want to do now is go through and break down some of these social media platforms and have a better feel for who's on these platforms, because we get asked that a lot. Or I'll have people in my marketing business too that'll call me and they'll say, hey, I need a Facebook page. And I'll say, why? Well, because my competitor's on there. Okay, well, why else do you want one? And so maybe, and then Facebook's not a good example, but maybe it's not the right platform. And there are some incidences where Facebook is not. 98% of the time, it probably is, because it's the beast. But it's really important to know, again, where are your customers at so that you can build relationships with them. So Michael, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about Facebook, since you're going to be talking about it next week.
Yeah, I think this is kind of interesting. A lot of the statistics that are on here, they have 1.6 billion users. This is worldwide. So I think I've heard that Facebook is the third largest country in the world. Mm-hmm. if you made them a country. But what's interesting is that 1.09 billion users are on Facebook every day at some particular point in time during the day. So they have a very active user base. They're actually on there using it. You'll also notice that a lot of them are, and when they're looking at this, you notice 77 and 66 don't add up to 100. But what they're saying is 77% of women are on Facebook as a whole, and 66% of men are on Facebook. So basically, you're over 2/3 of the population, both female and male, are getting on Facebook. There's a third of them that are never on Facebook, don't want to have anything to do with social media, but we're talking about the specific ones that are actually using it. And then you can look at the age group. And it always amazes me, because every year they come out with these statistics, and every year I think, oh, the younger kids are not going to be on here. And as you can see, that is the biggest chunk of the people that are on this.
They're on there. To me, I have a son who's 27, and he's on Facebook time, but he's not necessarily engaging a lot. He's out there seeing what's going on and maybe liking a post once in a while. Yeah, but he's not actively posting things. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind too, that it's okay if they're not, out there sharing, pictures of their lunch or whatever, but they are on there. And so you need to be out there with them. So.
Yeah, so I think this is, important. I think these are the things, some of these things that I think people need to realize is that Facebook, you have to kind of figure out what you're going to post. We'll talk a lot more about these things next week, but, text is very good. They want some text in there. Of course, nobody wants to read a lot of text, so they don't want to read a book. They just want to read something small. Pictures and videos tend to bring a lot of people or engage a lot more people, and so do polls. So if you're asking questions about your customers or your users, half the Facebook users, have 200 friends. So this is, I think, is really important for people to understand. As you look at this, 18 to 29, they have over 500 friends. So if they like something or share something, you're also reaching another 500 people, possibly in that age group, most likely their friends. in that same age group. So when you're looking at sharing and you're looking at putting stuff out there for your audience, remember that you're growing this audience exponentially by getting them to do these kind of things like sharing and those kind of things. So it's a great way to expand your audience. The next one, of course, is Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. So there's a little collaboration going on here. This audience seems to be a little bit more younger and a little bit more minorities, Blacks, Hispanics. It resonates with them because they can actually see pictures. We can look at things. You can see what other people are doing. Again, 31% are women, 24% are men. Again, a younger demographic. We have those 18 to 29-year-olds that are on there. And then the next biggest age is 30 to 49. So you can see that you're looking at a lot of different people, a lot more urban people than rural people. And I'm assuming that's because there's so many pictures out there. It's like, I got other stuff going on. 55% of the 18 to 29-year-olds use Instagram, making it prevalent second only to Facebook, and pictures and videos up to 15 seconds. Make sure that you understand that. I think a lot of people assume that they're going to watch more than 15-second videos. So I have clients that'll put in 20-minute videos and I'm like, would you watch it? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then why would you post it for your friends to watch? So keep them short. The pictures, you know, and keep the descriptions of pictures. I think one of the things that's missing in some of these as well is the fact that you should hashtag as a way to build audiences. And if you're not familiar with those, we'll talk a little bit about it next week. But that basically is kind of the search engine driver for these internet or these social media tools. So keep that in mind. LinkedIn. So this is one where I think a lot of people get confused on. First off, if you're doing any B2B type of sales, I highly recommend this. And it may not be the, I always use LinkedIn as an example of it may not be the best one for you to be posting things on, but it is the best one for you to find out information about people before you go meet with them. If you're a direct salesperson who has to go meet with people, this is a good place to go look at the person's resume so you can strike up a conversation. A lot of more educated people on here, people who have gone to college, because it is a professional platform. Most of these people on here are higher income earners, supposedly. Now you got to remember that I always tell people this because they always say, oh, I think the average income for LinkedIn was like 175,000 a year. And I said, okay, keep in mind that you have, you know, the guy from Twitter is on there, the guy who's, you know, you have the Virgin Airlines guy. You know, these people kind of skew those images, those numbers a little bit on the income side, but keep that in mind. Most people are ages 30 to 64, so it's a little bit older audience. Pretty much equal here between men and women using it, okay? But it's one that I think, you know, a lot of times I'll get people saying, well, I didn't, oh no, we don't sell to those kind of people. You know, you know, the restaurant and food industry, I think is a good one that says, oh, wait, why would we want to be on here? Well, if you have catering, you definitely want to be on LinkedIn, okay? Because most companies do some type of catering throughout the year. And so you need to find out who those people are. Again, text and links, blog post, much more robust information, blog post being 2 or 3 paragraphs, group discussions, images I think work well in these things, but I think images of humans are a little bit better in this as opposed to product images, talking about a specific person or the people that are waiting on your staff or whatever. Those kind of things I think resonate with these kind of people because they want to see the people that are employed there.
All right, so now we're going to talk about Twitter. And Twitter is an interesting platform. It's been around for a while. And what you can see here from the demographics, it's skewed a little bit more heavily towards the male. So 25% of men are on Twitter versus 21% of women. It doesn't have a high usage rate, but it's still a pretty good tool for organizations, nonprofit organizations, causes, sports, especially right now, like with March Madness and such, you're going to find that it's kind of blowing up for that. You're also looking at age demographic there is going to skew a little bit younger, so the 18 to 29, and then 30s to 49-year-olds. And interesting enough, I have a phone conversation today with a high school that is looking to establish a Letterman's Club. And one of the first comments made to me was, the athletic director hates Facebook. Yeah, well, he probably would, knowing his personality. He's not on it. So why should he be? And I said, interesting enough, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow morning that is going to be all on the different platforms, and you can't deny the numbers. But maybe in this case, Twitter would be a nice complementary one to Facebook, because we know that they're that 18 to 49-year-old, and that's kind of the sweet spot that they're going after for establishing this club, would be a good fit. So we'll see today as we have that conversation with them. Interesting too with Twitter, 41% of the household incomes is 75,000 and up. The average session time is about 3.39 minutes per session. 67% of B2B businesses are using Twitter as a digital marketing tool. And I thought this was interesting. 77% of Twitter users have a better impression of a brand when they respond to a tweet. So I know there was several years ago, there was something that came up, and it was a brand, might have been during Super Bowl or March Madness. I know it was a big sporting event, and there was something out there, and someone had complained about their product, and Twitter took a really, they utilized Twitter to take a creative stance on their response to the criticism, and it actually worked beautifully. Now, of course, I mentioned that, and I can't remember the product, but I do remember the situation there. So Twitter is an interesting platform. It's best with Twitter, to use text. It started off kind of as a texting platform with 140 characters, but you can add pictures, again, short videos. And this is also a really good place to add some polls and to get some information from your audience to help kind of build that persona. On average, nonprofits have about 112 Twitter followers for about every 1,000 email subscribers. So that's kind of an interesting statistic as well.
Can I say?
Go ahead. Yeah.
One thing about Twitter, I think that's a good use of it for businesses is that it's a great way to get press releases and news into the information like press and reporters' hands. I'm finding that using the Twitter to do that is that, you're not going to, of course, put the full press release in there, but, tagging those people and those kind of things in it actually helps get you that kind of that momentum, because it really is a media, like a news media outlet, I think sometimes, because there's lots of headlines that are on Twitter. So.
And I think it's a good platform too to connect with people that you wouldn't have an opportunity probably to get in front of.
Yeah.
By tagging them on a post or a tweet or whatever. And so it is an interesting platform. I used to be on Twitter religiously years ago, not so much anymore, but I still hop out there, especially during sports season, because I can get some really good inside information and up to date, statistics and things like that. So, but yeah, it's an interesting platform for sure. YouTube. So YouTube has a larger 18 to 49-year-old audience. And this is very relevant in my household. I have a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old who's been living at home while she's moving. And they're on their phones a lot. And they're on YouTube watching YouTube videos. In fact, last night I had one that had her headphones in. She's got really long hair. And I was talking to her, and she was so glued to her phone, and I was getting really angry because she was ignoring me. And then I realized she was watching a YouTube video with her headphones on. So I was like, okay, let's take those out and let's talk. But she was watching some influencer videos. There's over 1 billion users, with 80% of the views outside of the United States. I thought this was interesting to show you that mobile is definitely a channel or a platform that you need to be on, that half of the views on YouTube are on mobile devices. Age demographics, you're looking at that 14 to 34-year-old is kind of your sweet spot, but it does go up a little higher there, pretty strong actually. And 54% of all men are on it and 46% of women, which I thought was very interesting. My husband is addicted to YouTube videos for the webcams out in Jackson, Wyoming. And since we can't afford to live there and we can only afford a vacation there once a year at best, he lives every night by looking at the town square. It's at YouTube. So I guess that 54% shouldn't shock me much. Household incomes, 89% of the household incomes for the users are 100,000 and up. Average time spent per day is 11 minutes and 43 seconds. That's quite a bit of time people are spending on this platform. And 70% of YouTube views are done on the mobile device with a report that I had. So pretty interesting. Obviously, videos are the #1 content type for that. And also, I thought this was interesting that YouTube's been a huge part of several viral non-profit fundraising campaigns. For instance, like the Ice Bucket Challenge, kind of got it start going through there. And it's also a great platform for your business if you're doing instructional videos on how to, maybe you're a car dealer or an auto shop and you want to show how to change a tire. You could do, videos, or if you're a cosmetologist and you want to show how to get that perfect cat eye, you can go out there and do those kinds of tutorials. Or maybe it's gardening or brewing your own beer at home. The platform really allows you to go a little bit more in depth and build a relationship with your customers. So YouTube's actually a really interesting platform. I know we're looking to utilize it more in some of the stuff our center's doing. So do you have anything, Michael, on YouTube?
Well, the other thing is YouTube is also owned by Google. So they own it, and they're the second largest search engine, believe it or not. People search in YouTube for things. A lot of people will, clients will tell me, oh, I don't, why would I want to put a DIY video when I'm doing that? And I said, well, first off, let's think about this. Most people want to look at DIY videos, but don't want to actually do the DIY. So they're probably going to call you anyway to ask you to help them out.
Or they may want to watch it and then call you for the supplies, right?
Yeah,
because they won't have that chalk paint to redo the dresser or what have you. Yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly.
Very good point. But yeah, the search engine piece, thanks for mentioning that, because they're the second largest search engine. People go out there, and if they're not Googling it, they're YouTubing it. So I know we had a wash machine issue a few months back, and the first place that my husband went was YouTube to find a video to figure out if he could fix it on his phone or not. And we'll just say that was ethical. So anyway, and this last one that we want to talk about is TikTok. And so this is a relatively new platform. It really gained a lot of momentum last year. And so I don't have a graphic like the other ones, but I do got some pretty interesting statistics here that I want to share. So TikTok is actually the fastest growing social media platform out there. It was the most downloaded app on the Apple App Store, with over 33 million in the first quarter of 2019. I did see that it has been downloaded over 2 billion times on the App Store and Google Play in 2020. So that's kind of crazy. It skews a little bit more female, about 60%, and 80% of the users are 16 to 34 years old in the United States. The average user spends about 52 minutes a day. So almost an hour a day they're spending. And at our house, I would say with my 20 and 24-year-old right now, that is absolutely the case. It's insane. Instagram's about 53 minutes, Snapchat about 49.5, and Facebook's about 58.5. So it amazes me the amount of time that we spend on these platforms, which to me, from a marketing standpoint, says I need to be out there because I have an opportunity to connect with my customer. The biggest problem that you have is so many people are out there. You have to figure out how to cut through that noise, as I call it, and know who your customer is, so you know how to communicate with them and how to connect with them so you can make it work for you. 68% of the users on TikTok watch someone else's video, with 55% actually uploading their own. And there's over 1 billion videos viewed every day, which to me is just crazy. It is crazy. Let's see. Worldwide, 60% of the users are 10 to 29-year-olds, and TikTok is not available in China. Interesting enough. So those statistics don't have anything to do with that population. And so those numbers, I think, would be astronomically higher just due to population with that country. So that is what I have for TikTok. And if you aren't sure still which of the platforms would work best for you, that's what Michael and I do, right? We work with clients and help them figure out, how do I identify my customer? What's the right social media platform or the right communication platform in general? Maybe you should be in print. Maybe you should be on local radio. Maybe you should have an ad on Spotify. Maybe you should, there's all different kinds of platforms out there, but it really comes down to, at the end of the day, of really knowing who your customer is. Because if you don't know who they are, then how do you know how to communicate with them or where to communicate with them, right? So I think that's really a huge first step. And like I said, Michael and I have a lot of resources and tools that we can work with you on. So if it is something that you're struggling with, and hopefully today we gave you a couple of reasons why it's important to know, but maybe a few tips on how to start maybe creating that persona of who your customers are, and start slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't make it be overwhelming.
That's what I was going to say. Start with one platform and then you can add the rest on later. I always say, let's just do one at a time and we'll get through it. We'll do them.
So we've got just a couple of minutes left that we could answer some questions. So if you do have a question, if you want to unmute yourself and ask it, you can, or you can type it in the chat box if you're not wanting to speak. I know it's a little early yet for some, so all right, it doesn't seem like anything's coming through, but our contact information, it was on the last slide, and I'm sure that Lauren or anyone else there at Region 12 would be happy to give you our contact information so you can reach out directly to myself or Michael if you have specific questions. So hopefully, like I said, you took away something this morning to help you better understand who your customer is and why it's important. So next week, Michael will be on here talking about Facebook business pages, and I think that's an awesome topic to follow what we talked about today, with it being the beast of platforms. And there's a lot of people that say, all right, I got my Facebook page, now what? And so Michael will answer some of those questions for you next week. So thank you for everyone's time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Bye.
Everybody, yep, thank you. Bye-bye.